Hello, and welcome to the GDC 2000 Production Track Keynote. Once in a long while you meet someone who can visualize an alternate world in complete and comprehensive detail. For them, the vision is so real that it seems to take on a life of its own. Sometimes these people, as a result of their immersion in this vision, get committed. But sometimes they become committed to realizing that vision for others to experience and enjoy. They are the shaman and the folklorists of alternate realities. They are the poets of the digital age. Abe, the hero of the Oddworld mythos, is the first video game character that I became emotionally involved with as I played the game and attached to. Aside from what that might suggest about me as a person, it speaks volumes about our production track keynote speaker's ability to translate a complete and compelling vision into a world that we can explore, be influenced by, and enjoy. With that, I'd like to welcome to the stage Oddworld co-founder and leading citizen, Lorne Lanning.
Thank you, Mark. This is working. I heard Bill Gates was wearing this earlier today. So I've been backstage rubbing it. Thank you for showing up. The topic Mark and Alan asked me to do a while ago, maintaining vision and consistency, and I said, through the hell of production, you mean? And that's really kind of how I look at it, because those of you that are making games, it's a bitch. And when you're making games that you really care about, I think it's even harder. And it doesn't get any easier. And so when I looked at the conference and who's talking about what, Phil Harrison, he's talking about the Sony technology, and Bill Gates was here today talking about the Microsoft technology, and all that stuff's really impressive. And we just got back from the Game Executive Conference in Monterey, listened to all the publishers talking, their perspectives on what's happening and this and that, and it's all dollars and cents, and it's all market analysis, and it's all, retail pressures. And the one thing that's not coming up at all, that this is the most powerful art form on the planet today, and no one gets that. I believe that. And so what I wanted to talk about today wasn't really technology and wasn't really this other things. It was just how do we get this to act like an art form and the realities of the business. And so that being said, rule number one toward manifesting your vision: make sure there's a shark on your side, because everyone else is going to bring their own. And any of you that have had to have projects financed or started projects or did these different, endeavors, you find that it just doesn't go like it seems like it's going to go. And promises were made aren't kept. And people have very convenient memories for whatever suits their career at the moment as you're trying to get things done. This is my partner, Sherry McKenna, and I can guarantee you that with the brilliant artists that we have, with the brilliant programmers that we have, with the brilliant management staff that we have, systems ops, all of that, without this woman, there's no way I'd be standing here today, and you never would have heard of Abe or Oddworld or any of this, because the other sharks would have taken it out a long time ago. So that's, if you don't, you got to realize that if you want to bring what you feel is important. We're kind of like in the music industry when rock and roll just really started happening, and like people had enough problems with Elvis because he was just like, they were like, sex? What? That's not supposed to happen in music, And then comes Bob Dylan talking about how people shouldn't be going to Vietnam, and then you've got oppression, and you've got people fighting to try and get their music out to the people. And this medium is more powerful than that was. It's just a question of time. And if we want to get that out there, you have to get the people on your side, whether, if you're at EA, it better be Bing Gordon, or wherever. It had better be the people that have push and know how to play when big money becomes involved, because the way that the video game industry is evolving, it's big bucks. There's no getting around it. And the other thing, you know, I remember a company years ago was just started up, and it said, yeah, we're going to do it, man. We're going to do it without producers. And I was just like, wow, that's really funny, you know. Because if you work with these artists and programmers, I mean, how do you do it without producers, you know? But just don't ask them to be creative. Because these guys, I said, give me creative pictures of the teams. You know, they're producers, but you need them. So those of you that have tried to push games, I think this is something you'll relate to. And I like to use our own characters in talking about this stuff because they were really inspired by these types of moments. This is this is Moloch the Gluckin. It's like, that's a very interesting idea, but we would feel much safer if you just built this cheesy license we just paid big bucks for. I mean, you've heard that, right? I heard that. I heard that after we signed the deal to say we were going to build Oddworld characters, and we had great production designs, and we had all this material. Didn't matter. We heard, well, we have this Isaac Asimov novel that consumers can identify with. You know, it's like, what? Game players don't give a shit about Isaac Asimov. I love the guy, but they don't care. Rule number 2, understand the golden rules. This is the slide I had up earlier of Sherry. She really beat this one into me when I first met her years ago working at a company called Rhythm & Hughes in Los Angeles, does computer graphics. And this is the hardest lesson for artists to get a grasp of, because the fact of the matter is, no one cares about your vision. Nobody. Now, you might have other artists, and you might have a few people here and there, but the bank doesn't care. The publishers, we just came from GDC, by the way, GEC. They had a talk called Managing Creative Talent. Oh, man, you guys are in trouble. They don't have a clue. Not a clue. Very few guys. I think, well, I'll remember later who had a clue. But it'll have to come to me. But this is the rule. This is a tough one. As artists, we want to resist it. So what are the golden rules? He who has the gold rules. If they're writing the check, they rule. He who rules doesn't like risks. This is just a fact of the industry. There's no getting around this. If your vision is unique and different and costs money, it's a big risk. It's that simple. You will not find anyone in this industry to look at it any differently. And if you have any rich uncles or anything, God bless you, but they'll probably look at it the same way. Rule number 3, have your ducks in a row. This is the majority of the talk. I wanted to skip over the business aspects real quick and cut to the chase. Your ducks. The vision. What is it? The inspiration. What inspires your vision? Because that's what gives it legs. That's what feeds what you're trying to do every moment of the day, when you go home and you're going to sleep, when you're trying to problem solve. The production, the team. This is one of the things, when we first started Oddworld, we saw huge opportunities in the game industry, and we had never built a game before. So Sherry and I love to joke about this, but we often go, yeah, you know, 2 people never built a game before, and we were asking for $3.5 million. You know, but the time was right. We knew it was dumb money time. You know, all of these people were talking about Hollywood and Silicon Valley and the info highway. This is late 1994. And I was just like, God, there's just going to be a lot of dumb money out there. You know, maybe we can get some. And we did, you know. And he was dumb. You know, he really was. But he made money too. The market. Why is it that your product is going to be viable? You know, I mean, there's a million ideas, but half of them will never sell. So why do the other half maybe have a chance? And which amongst those that you're thinking of, you know, how do you convince someone that it's worth them putting in their money for you to build your dream? It's like, I remember when I was just a kid, it was like I wanted to create images. So it was a pencil and a piece of paper, 12 cents. You know, and then I saw airbrushes. I was like, oh, shit, 150 bucks. Then it was like computers, bam, 80 grand. You know, and it's video games, millions. You know, no getting around it. And the reason I had the team up there, which I didn't mention, is the thing that's happening in the video game industry is that the teams are getting bigger. And you can't have scale without management. And management's the dirty word, and especially as artists, we hate to hear it. As creative people, we don't like it. But we usually find ourselves sort of in it eventually, because if we want to manifest our visions in this complex medium, it takes a lot of people. And I think the definition of politics is anytime there's more than one person. You just don't escape, you know, all the petty things that start going on and how easy it is to get off course. But what also happens is that the people with the vision tend to forget that it's the team that builds everything. And this is, you know, when we look at the video game industry today, I think it's just so blatantly obvious that the people who think they're the, you know, sort of ego-central icons are actually building the games. And they forget about the people that are building the games that are working with them. And then those people go off every time they complete a game and start a new company somewhere else. Why? Well, duh. No appreciation. Egos. So inspiration. What's yours? What is it that drives your vision? It's going to keep you interested for years to come. Now, we're seeing things happening in the industry today that are kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time. And what's happening is that we hear this brand label all the time. Brand. We need a brand, you know. I'm only going to publish brands as a publisher. You know, no, we're only going to license stuff. We're not going to fund any new titles anymore, any new ideas. And it's really a shame because all these great ideas are out there that are not going to get built in these next couple of years. They're just not, because the publishers, they're not going to take the risks. So if you're bound and determined like we were, you go, well, we have to make it make sense for a longer period of time. We need to make it make business sense. We need to make it make practical sense. But more importantly, we need to look at it and we need to say, why is it that we're still going to be interested in building this world, you know, in 10 years from now? And why is it that the really talented production designer who can go work in the film industry tomorrow, well, we stole him from the film industry anyway, but like he could go back there tomorrow, you know, why is he going to want to stay here in 10 years? What opportunities does he have? Why is our universe rich enough to keep the people that are really creative interested so that after 10 years they're going, shit, man, you know, we never did this back with those other characters and we could have done this, that, and the other thing. And so it's really depth and that's going to keep you interested. And you have to look at that in many ways if you're trying to create your own identity. Is it worth going through all the hard times for? These experiences don't get built without major headaches, ulcers, gray hair. You know, they're all, I'm accounting for all of them. You know, it's awful building these games. It's just painful. Everyone's stressed. You can't be late. It can't have bugs. The testers play it 90,000 million ways and they break it in another 100 million that you never thought would happen. All these bugs start adding up. All these things happen. The publishers change their mind through the course of business. You release a game that you know people are calling you up and going, wow, this is fabulous, and you can't find it on the shelf because the publisher and the distributor didn't get it out there. These things happen all the time. Why is it worth what you want to do putting up with all this hardship? And that's what you have to just face coming into it in financial, you know, in getting your projects financed. It's not going to be easy, but that doesn't mean it's not worth it. This is an example of like games we'd love to play, but we don't want to build. You know? So these are sort of some fictitious games I thought we'd get a kick out of because I think they'd be really successful. But I don't want to live with them if you built them later. I want to play this game. You know? I just don't want to build it. You know? I think it'd be a big hit. It's even got new pimp power-ups. Just in case there's any racial side. I think this is a hit. Look at Roller Coaster Tycoon. Okay. It's inspiring. It really is. I think this one would just go through the roof. You know? There's a game I wanted to make called Virtual Judge where you could shoot all the stupid spokespeople on TV. No one would ever finance it. I wouldn't really want to build it, but I'd love to play it. You know, if Carmen Santiago could do it, right? This is, I don't know if you can see the tip, but it's, you know, find grandma's stash before they put her in a home. But the point of these is like, we laugh because there's something ironically true that we'd actually like to do in these games, you know? And that's because we live in a really messed up world. You know? It's really tweaked. It's really dysfunctional. But that doesn't have to be all bad. We can turn that into more positive things. And I look at it and I go, you know, there's a quote from the 15th century. In the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And that's kind of where I feel in many ways we are today. It's like anyone with a glimpse of vision in this industry stands a chance. Because the business of this industry doesn't have a clue. They know how to analyze the market statistics. They know how to look at all of the, you know, what's happening. How do you tell if products are moving? How do you get retailer feedback? All the numbers. But what they have no sense of? Art. And art is what makes these things explode. But it hasn't really hit this industry yet. Yet this industry is, I believe, the most powerful. And I'll explain why at the end. This was our perspective, and this was our vision when we started the company. And it was real simple. Like people used to say, well, what's the demographics for your game? And we go, PG. And they go, you idiot. You don't get it. It's the game industry. We go, no, you don't get it. It's not going to be. You know, this is how the future is going to go. So we said, this is the number of people who consume Hollywood entertainment. This means watches TV and watches movies and rents videos. And this is the number of people that play video games. Now, the video games are $49.95 or whatever on the shelf. Makes up for a lot of money, but it's not the same amount of people playing. And our belief was that the market will start to expand when games start to basically embody more of the heart that we expect from classical forms of entertainment, more of the soul that we get from a great movie. Why do we care? Not only the challenging factors. There's a lot of talks that you can go to this week that are all about gameplay, about how to make things addictive, about how to do this, and they're all valid, and I think we should go. But there's another aspect, which is, why does anyone care? You know, there's a great thing that that's kind of a fact when, you know, you sit down a guy at a game, and you go, and he says, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, what you do is you run around like and you shoot everything, right? And he goes, oh, cool, okay. And he starts doing it. And then you say the same thing to a girl, and she goes, well, why? And the game designer's going, well, shit, man, I'm not supposed to ask that question. Just shoot the things, man. But that's really something that we should pay attention to. Okay, but what's that mean? Stories with depth. Why are these stories any good? In the industry today, there's some cool things going on in different places. I mean, educational titles is where I see a lot of really neat stuff happening. But where, in general, there's not really stories going on. What there is excuses for stories. And what I mean by that is, you know, zombies invaded my hometown, killed them all. That's not a story. That's an excuse for a story. You know? It's an excuse to shoot everybody. That's what it is. The stories with depth, a little more depth. Characters with depth and powerful dilemmas. What that means is like, what makes a great movie? What's your favorite movie of all time? Think of it. And not say, okay, and we can identify what the character's dilemma was. There aren't great movies without great character dilemmas. There's something has to happen to that character. Something has to change over time. But for the most part today, we're not, just beginning to touch on that as an industry. There's a lot of reasons why, and it's tough, but it's true. Gameplay that has more entertainment value, which is, so far in games, we've been after, I think the industry has been after, and I'm talking about frontline games. There's a lot of games out there. 170 million games? I don't remember. Never mind. But by entertainment value, I mean not only challenge, but like, why am I laughing? No, why is that funny? Why does that make me sad? How do I feel about it? It's not just like, is it addictive and is it challenging? That's kind of like the primordial soup of where games are evolving out of. Forget about it and you're dead. You have to have, why is it addictive, why is it challenging? But on the other parts now, it's time to push it a little more as far as we can, as you know, with every baby step to say, well, why are we laughing while we're having fun? Why are we feeling this way? Why are we compelled to go there for other reasons than to just, you know, be aggressive? When we started the company and when we started production on Abe's Odyssey in '95, we had a basic, simple sort of algorithm. We said, look, you know, the future game genres are they're gonna be sort of gene spliced together, and they're gonna become, well, more like Hollywood. In that, when we go see a good love story, it doesn't mean it doesn't have a car chase. It doesn't mean it didn't have a gunfight. It doesn't mean that it wasn't a bank robbery. But in games today, they tend to be segregated genres, you know, and there's a lot of technological evolutionary reasons why that's the case. But when we look towards the future, we have to, you know, it starts becoming obvious, wow, the future gameplay in what I consider the frontline sort of epic class will be more genre splicing, where we get more different types of events from different types of genres fusing into one experience where you're going, well, that makes total sense. Yeah, that's what should have happened. You know, it's not so segregated as it was before. And on that simple formula, I mean, the 32-bit era, this was before the Sony PlayStation even released. It was in '94 that we founded the company. But that happened a lot with games in the 32-bit era. You know, you saw a lot more of this genre crossing, and that's a really good thing. The other ingredient, you know, we wanted 2 heaping scoops of Hollywood on top, meaning that rich integration between the two. And Hollywood's kind of a bad word even to me, except there's no better word. Abe's Odyssey and Abe's Exodus, using that formula, went on, and they've sold nearly 4 million units today. But this is where we're heading, and this is what some of the things I'm showing you now. This is where our 128-bit era games are focused, which is taking action, adventure, simulation, RPG, strategy, and 2 heaping scoops of Hollywood and putting them on top, gene splicing them into a new type of experience that doesn't feel like a game. And the thing that a lot of people go, oh, that was a really brilliant idea, or this was, you know, genius, or this was this, and it's like, well, creativity, you know, I don't really believe it comes like that. I think it comes by just knowing how to create really difficult problems for yourself. So you go like, okay, here's where it's going. This is what we're going to do, and everyone goes, how? And they freak out for all the right reasons. But you have to create difficult problems, and if you can find the solutions to them, other people will just think they're brilliant. This is one of the problems that we identified early on, and we wanted to try and really change this basic paradigm. And that was that over time, and I'm talking frontline games, you know, the majority of the multi-million sellers, whether even Mario follows this paradigm, which is aggression over time equals rewards. Now, it doesn't matter that you're shooting anything or you're just bouncing on their heads and getting rid of them. It's all the same sort of concept. And what's really interesting about this is that kids are spending gajillions of hours in these experiences. They'll sit down with that Mario game for you know, the entire weekend, 40, 60 hours a week in the summer. Well, how could we, and this is keeping the rest of the people who think games are still for kids, even though the majority, 59% of the PlayStation owners are over 18 years old, as an example, they just want something more interesting. It's like the girl says, well, why? Or what she asks. And so we thought, if we could start to change the paradigm to be empathy equals rewards over time, but still not sacrifice the things that are fun about action and adventure, you know, and these other things, then we could start to get a little more heart going, and that might start to do things like, even back then we were saying, well, pick up on the female demographic. You know, get more women interested in games, and girls, and that started happening. But it meant evolving the video game character in the way that we saw it. You know, classic Hollywood what does a classic entertainment character do, and what does a video game character do? And if you just look at it across the board, and you forget about, text because characters have long dialogue, and you go, no, like real entertainment value, not gamey geek stuff, real superficial entertainment value. You go, well, classic characters talk, and they listen, and they communicate, and they have relationships with other characters. Even Wile E. Coyote, or Tasmanian Devil, or Bugs Bunny, they all have these traits. Let alone when you get into the movies and things. So talking, listening, communicating. These were basic ideas that we said, well, how do we get that to start to happen in a very simple form? And this is an example of that. That was nothing, but some of you are laughing, and that's the key. It's like, how do we make the basic interaction between characters just a little more interesting? Just have a little more entertainment value right on top. And it's really tough problems to solve with these video game machines that don't have enough memory, that don't have enough CPU power, that don't have enough RAM. And the beginnings of playable feelings. And this can be really superficial, but just to start. Something happens. Does your character know something happened? How does your character feel about it? Here's a little example. It's real simple, but it works. Set goals for your character's evolution. This is something, we looked at this and we went, well, what does a real life form do? Because we look at it at Oddworld and we try to think of it as though what we're really doing is reverse engineering life and seeing how much of it we can get into these like really primitive technological devices that are running today. And we go, well, they use this part of the brain for emotions, and they use their eyes to see things, and they use their different parts of the brain for different things. They have ears, and that makes them react differently. They have stomachs, which process food. They have intestines. They have colons. This governs a real character's behavior. The funniest things in a movie happen when they're robbing a bank, but the guy forgot to go to the bathroom. You're like, dude, how could you have to take a piss now? And video game characters aren't doing that yet. So we set this and we go, well, maybe we'll get to some of these in Munch's Odyssey, and maybe we won't. But this is where our goals are, is to sort of reverse engineer the dilemmas that happen from organic life forms. These are the guys that we're asking to pull it off, which is quite scary. But this is not enough in this industry, are the people talking about the teams and giving them the credit for what they deserve. What inspires your characters? We call it recipes for the dysfunctional. Now this is Abe's recipe. This is how you get an Abe. This is like a little cooking thing here. Use One American Meat Institute promo. Now I love this because it has the happy cow happily moving on to the butcher house. That's just great. And he happily gets chopped up and sent to the happy family at the supermarket. Doesn't get much better than that. Mix in 4 chuhas. I think I'm saying that correctly. Now, I don't know if you know about these guys, but this is in Pakistan. And there's a sort of a cult group that seems to be kidnapping children at a really young age. And then what they do is they put on iron helmets on their heads that keep their brains from growing. And then somehow they make them mute. This has been investigated, and people wind up dead when they try to get too close. But they breed these people, they raise these people mentally handicapped because their brains aren't allowed to grow, so that they can go out and use them to beg with all the tourists and stuff. And that's how they make their money. So there's some sick people in the world. But that sometimes is the greatest material for inspiration, sad as it is. It's like the lightest hearted ideas sometimes come from the most gross realities. Top off with classic American misinformation. Now this was issued by the Lard Information Council. Because they're a council, you can trust them. This is still going on today. If I had 7 hours, I could show slides like this. It would just blow our minds through the history of America. But that's inspirational. This to us is inspirational material. Force feed to seriously troubled production designers. Because if you have a normal production designer, fire him. Get him out of there. These guys, you need to work with people, creative people, that really are sort of have their pulse on the majority of the youth of today in many ways. And that's not your prep school kids. You know, there's some issues going on today. And so you want to make sure that your programmers or your production designers have those same issues. You know, it's a healthy thing. And fortunately, we're in an industry where we actually get paid to be messed up. Makes one 70-pound meat plant work. That was the ingredients for Abe. Now, the next one's a little more disturbing, but I think builds an even better character. Let's try it. Grab one kitty from UCLA Medical Labs. I mean, how do you do this to a cat? Inspiration for our scientists in our new game. Add her friend from the facial cream testing division. Keep America beautiful. Animal testing is a very interesting area. Mix in with 100 bunnies from pharmaceutical. And I always look at these pictures and I kind of look at them and I go, well, this guy's going, hey man, we're screwed, dude. You know, this one's like, yeah, I know. What are they doing now? Sad but true. Bake with pure evil. This is a woman who was an unwitting victim of U.S. radiation experiments with WINS compensation at last. Her doctors, when she was going there for nutritional needs, were actually working for the U.S. government. And instead of asking for volunteers or anything like that, they just started injecting U.S. citizens with uranium when they came in for basic checkups and things. And so obviously they all developed cancer and died. And then they fight and fight and fight against a system that lies to them and says, no, we never did that, until they finally have enough proof where they go, no, you did. And they go, well, you're right. We'll pay you up. You know, cigarette industry, same kind of stuff. This is like, we're living in a consumer world. And this happens and happens and happens, and we watch the 5 or 6 o'clock news and we go, no, it doesn't happen and happen. But the 5 and 6 o'clock news usually aren't covering this type of material. Although this, I cut this out particularly because it was in People magazine. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Stir till hundreds of iterations. This is Farzad, our lead production designer, an amazingly talented guy. And I'm sorry to say I put Farzad through hell all the time. These are all the drawings that ultimately led towards Munch. And it takes iterations and iterations and iterations and iterations. How do we embody that really disturbing, sad reality that's happening in our world today and turn that into a character that people like? And all those ingredients, they get one Munch. And you can see he has his little port in his head. Oh, that's how I was born. Now this guy, our heroes, we've said this a long time ago, is they're not the super, you know, the steroided out, muscle-bound heroes you want to be. They're the poor schmucks you are. Living in a world that really doesn't give a shit about them. And when you understand, the reason I'm showing you this stuff is because when this is what's designing your characters, you know, when this is what's inspiring them, you know so much more about who they are and how they feel. So like if you go up to Munch, you go, hey, what's that on your head? I'd be like, you know, get off, man. Because that's sore. You know, it's these little character traits that come out and they just, in any circumstance, they start, boom, they start surfacing because you know who they are and you know more about how they feel. This is Munch in the, this is a production painting from the opening movie about Munch's Odyssey. He gets abducted. Well, abducted. We theme these guys, these bikers. He's a scientist. We call them bikers. And they're kind of like that guy in the picture with the bunny rabbits. You know, they're just desensitized to all this. So they implant this thing in his head. Eventually, Munch escapes, and that's the beginning of your journey in gameplay. Now, this is something that you can believe. What we believe is that the future, the 21st century, is more of a dysfunctional Disney. You know, where Disney sort of won the 20th century, we go, that's not the future. Because kids just don't dig that anymore. We're dealing with different kids. These are not kids that grew up in the 60s. We're now, I mean, they grew up in the 50s. We're now dealing with kids and people like myself. We were born in the 60s. We watched Vietnam on TV. Our moms are on Prozac. You know, everyone's an alcoholic. You know, 12 steps is like the Bible today. You know, it's a dysfunctional world. And more people are part of that world. But so we focus and we go, if we can embody dysfunctional characters that are really endearing, then we think that's what people are really going to connect with. But that doesn't mean it's actually going to work. And so what you do is, I'm calling it a taste test. This was the front of our T-shirts that we sent out in our first press release for Munch's Odyssey. It says, "Good news, it's animal testing." It's like, what the hell does that mean? You know? And it's got this guy in a wheelchair, you know, because he steps in a bear trap at the beginning, and he's only got one leg, you know, so, and it's broken. This was the back of the T-shirt. Bad news, you're the rabbit. When we sent out that T-shirt, we didn't know, and this is our taste test. See, because what we do know is that publishers and different people are going to look at it and they're going to go, no. Where's the fuzzies? Where's the Disney, man? You know, come on, what are you trying to sell? Because we know that they don't have their finger on the pulse of what the market feels. They have their history and all their statistics on what the market has bought, but they don't know what the market will buy. You know, and you can buy the wrestling license and get a pretty safe bet that that's what will sell, you know, and that's all good. But when you want to try and create new stuff, every step is going to be a fight. They go, that looks kind of disturbing. I don't see a plush toy there. And you go, well, we taste tested this. And every time one of our people wears this down the street, we always get comments. How do I get that shirt? That is just great. We send it out to the press. They freak out. They're like, oh, that's awesome, man. I can't wait. I can't wait. So you go, yeah, we're disturbed people. We like this stuff. You know? And we're tired. Really nice thing about coming from the film industry and still having friends there, you get their market statistics for free. Right? So Disney does tests, and they find out that people, when they're watching Disney movies today, if they know what's going to happen, they don't like the movie anymore. If they are surprised and don't know what's going to happen, they do like the movie. Well, there's so much, the world is so saturated with old and tired formulas that people are just tired of it. They want to be surprised, but they still want to have heart. So how do you surprise them with heart? What inspires your worlds? We like them to be dysfunctional too. That means the backgrounds, the environments, things of that nature. These are things that I just love. Looks like a beach, but is it really? This is an indoor beach in Japan. Can't go to the beach? No problem. We build one. Most depressing conference we ever went to was in Singapore, that when we were doing films for the film industry, was for the theme parks, and it was to the financial community of the whole Pacific Rim, and the concept was, you know, investing in theme parks, like how to make money in theme parks. And we sat there for 3 days, and I was like totally depressed by the end, and I went, my God, do you realize that the message that was just spent over these 3 days was the message that was sent to the whole Asian financial community was, buy rainforest because it's cheap, and build theme parks there that are environmentally themed. I kid you not. That's the real world. And I went, my God. And these people are investing, you know, retirement funds and all these things that if they lose the money, we're going to be pissed off about. So we're all sort of guilty in the way the world is going today, and none of us are outside of it unless you're, you know, living in a tribe somewhere self-sustaining, and most of us don't. But still, when you look at these beaches going indoors, we're just getting glimpses of our future. History not taught in school. These are Chinese propaganda posters, and this is what this actually says. Preparing to counter a war of aggression. You know, because you got like those really aggressive Tibetans next door. Becoming more prosperous every day. That's the title of this poster. You know, it's like, what? Is that what we want? This one's even better. On the banks of Yangtze River, I'm not sure, duck king blooms. They're selling this. This is like, these are posters that are saying, yes, we're doing well. It's like, are you sure? Doesn't look it, man. So half of the world, this is the message they're being sent. What about us? That's how I look at it. It's like, yeah, what about you? In a carnivorous world, you're a living snack. That was one of our standees in retail when Abe's Odyssey released. And that's sort of a theme on Oddworld. It's like, you think you're safe? Think again. So we get to talk about all these fun issues, except we do it inside a fantasy world. And because they don't have the Exxon logo on them, or the McDonald's logo, well, then we don't get sued. So it works. We did find peace in Japan, but it was $4 a pack. Peace lights, even. And you can't see the type really, but it says, now with stronger peace flavor. Where do they come up with this stuff? And then we felt ripped off because for the price of peace, we could have bought 2 packs of hope. Moving right along. That's inspiring stuff. It really is. How does anyone figure out to name cigarettes hope? That's like Coke adds life. I don't get it, you know? What does your character discover? How does this change your character? These are questions you should ask yourself when you're writing your stories. Because if your character didn't discover anything that changed them, it's not a good story. Sorry. You got to, because that's what pulls us in. What results from this event that he discovered? Why did this discovery conflict with your character's belief systems? Where's his internal turmoil? For Abe, he was a clueless meatpacking worker who found out that he was next on the menu. We thought that was a great soundbite. You know, went over quite well. What changes in its life, its outlook, because of it? How does this affect your character's behavior from here on? These are the most important questions you can ask. And people think stories a lot of times, and they have really cool stories, but they don't have the characters to back them up. Whereas oftentimes, the stories are just the vehicle for really strong characters that came first. Expressions. Does your character have them? Now, there's a lot of cool characters out there, but they don't express themselves. So, you know, can they? And Abe was not easy. I mean, we sewed his mouth shut. Cut off a little of his expressions, but, you know, it kind of gave him a different tweaked quality that people looked at and they went, why the hell is his mouth sewed shut? You know? And that was like, bing, one little point of interest, one little attraction that made it a little stranger. You know, and it takes a long time to design something that ugly. But we believe in that. Story and gameplay, are they connecting? You know, this could be a whole huge talk in itself. We tried different devices. We have little those of you who are familiar with our games, we have the databases in the games, the same as the databases in the movies, every opportunity. This is a still from a clip where a Gluckin is turning to a Slig, and Abe just possessed another Slig on the screen, and he's going, what the hell's going on there? But it was the exact same gameplay you had just played, and now you're watching the movie, watch your play 2 seconds later, connecting you more. So this is like in gameplay today, you know, for the most part, in the industry, we're still very separated between this is the story of the game and then here's the play. You know, and so one of the things we've been really trying to focus on, and hopefully we're all focusing on, is like how do we get the stories to be more an integral part of that play? And that's a really, really hard problem, you know, and we certainly haven't solved it completely. But that's one of our goals for the future too, marrying them more and more and more together so that you're never breaking out of the experience entirely. This is interactive. Does your character pay penalties for acting like you? The way we look at it is like, you're not our characters. You're the guardian angel of our characters. And if you want to be a real schmuck, you can do that. And your character will go along with it. And if you want to be a good guy, you can do that too, and your character will go along with it. You're sort of like, you know, a little angel on his shoulder and a little devil on his shoulder. That's because you're the one controlling him. So if you did bad in our worlds, Abe found destiny in a meat grinder in Abe's Odyssey, and in Abe's Exodus in a tear extractor. Tear was one of the major ingredients for Soulstorm Brew. which is sort of a shortage of materials on the market. So they had to zap the Mudokons' tears for their ingredients. There were good endings too, but it's interesting because we said, well, the game player wants to be aggressive, so let them be aggressive. But is that the message that in the end we really want to sell to them? Aggression helps you in life. And we said, well, no, but you don't want to make it void of that, because you're not going to, one, you're not going to sell any units, and two, it might not be any fun. And so we let you get all the way to the end with either behavior. But then if you cared for the character, you might go back and try and redeem the actions. And we found an amazing amount of people that did. They played through the first time. Because the game player, all they want to see is the next level art. It's like, show me the art, bing, 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 bing. And then they found out, wow, I just screwed over my character. Totally. And then they go, wow, I want to go save him. Hopefully. Know your world. Understand its themes. Ours is consumerism versus mysticism. These are tools to consistency that keep creativity on course. They inspire solutions that would not have otherwise come. This is the way the native world looks at the life forms, the wildlife, the natural environment. This is the way the industrial world looks at them. And this is where the clash is in the middle. And it's subtle, but the subtext is, we feel, a great story is just a small boat floating on an ocean of subtext, even if it's in a game. Clashing themes. Spruce economy. Spruce is the force of life for us in Oddworld. This is coming in our new games. Fuzzles, meeps, and meetles. These are guys on the landscape. What does one perspective look and feel like? Oops, let me back that up. This is a little visualization from Munch's Odyssey. So these are just playing out of QuickTime, so I can't help, but every time I show stuff, I disclaim it. So it's playing out of QuickTime, so they stutter, things like that. But that establishes, that look there establishes a way that we want the natural world to feel. And then because we visualized it, nothing you saw there is over 6,000 polygons, no more than 750K of texture maps, no animations. It's all what will be in the game. And we go, yeah, this is the way we want sort of the natural. It's a feel for the natural world. Now, this is a feel for the industrial world, caged fuzzles, meeps, and beetles. Because they look at all these guys as though, hey, that's moolah on a hoof, just waiting to be ground up. By the way, this is showing all the camera actions, how things happen. We visualize them first so we can communicate really different concepts to a lot of people on the team. This is taking the evolution of our characters from the first games. Abe's hiding in the shadows. From doing the visualizations, we find the shadows aren't dark enough right away. We learn a lot of things before we're finally able to run on these new systems that don't have all their tools in place yet. And Abe's turning the industrial world against himself. That's one of our themes. Great stuff. This is like everybody's worth something. Moolah economy. We use power plants, nuclear power plants, to inspire what our factories looked like in our first games. Visualize living environments. This is all art direction that takes place before we have things running. Understandings of it's not just a factory, it's a place that processes, that does something, that creates something. This is where the worlds of interactive are going, so let's try and figure that out now. Here's an example of terrain changes. What causes them? See, the factories on our new landscapes are sucking out the water so that they can be productive. So the more that they suck out water from the landscapes, the more the terrain changes. And then there's these little creatures called mud floods that aren't in here yet that go like, when the water goes down, they're all, and they're stuck in the mud and dying. So you run around this gorgeous world and you hear, like dogs caught in traps or something, And you go, that's going to bother you after a while. You're going to want to do something about it. This is how does a factory have life? Everyone has a job. Security guards are walking around making sure everyone's doing their job. This is in the game just looking through a video camera, looking at the real-time game that's taking place, and everyone's doing their job. But it gives it a different sense of life, even though it's a lifeless place. We wanted lots of characters. So when you looked at it, it felt like something was really going on there, not just 5 guys waiting for us to come by to shoot at us. What does it do? Who works there? What are their jobs? This is our programming team. Sure, no problem. That's when they look at this stuff early on. They're like, yeah, right. Number one answer, you won't hear from these guys. Sure, no problem. They all go, ah! Why did I come to work here? But you don't get anything done without these guys, and they're brilliant. Industrial themes. So you want to find themes that help to influence the different aspects of what you're doing so that you have tools to create, even if you don't have all the answers yet. You really need cerebral tool sets. So for like the industrial themes, these are real-time buildings that are on the landscapes, and they each serve different purposes. Flub fuels, Sloggy Hut, Guard Tower, Magog Motors. Our theme here is steel and stained glass. So we know, no matter what we're designing, if it's a building for the industrial that we haven't done before, it's steel and stained glass. It's a theme. The native theme is sticks, skins, and rocks. That's it. So it should always be the same sticks, skins, and rocks. Aside from what I'm not going into is all the techno-babble as to why you need to do that, or why you should, why you want to reuse the same texture maps without sucking up all that RAM, because none of them have enough, maybe with the exception of what we saw with the Xbox this morning. But for the most part, none of them, even the PS2, it still doesn't have the RAM you want. So you create these themes, and it gives you very, very honing ways in which you're creating stuff. This is the Viker theme. These are the scientists. And we felt like, the idea of just pulling things out of the wild, or stealing someone's cat from their home, that then winds up at UCLA Medical Labs, that then winds up with a port in its head. There's something really alien about that. I mean, it's just so disconnected from life and understanding the basic concepts of life. It's like, okay, whatever. You think you need this to sell your shaving cream. You need to torture 1 million animals to sell your shaving cream? I don't think so. And it's just, something's really off. But, we're not the type of people to go out with protest signs, so, but they influence your work in different ways. And the Vikers, because they were really alien themed, we thought, they were really alien in their sort of connection to life, meaning they were so separated that we did them in a whole UFO alien theme. And, we used like the classic sort of Warner Brothers UFO shape. And when Munch gets abducted later in the story, and he's trying to communicate after he escapes that he was abducted, he's like going, yeah, man, it came from up there. And he's drawing sticks, little UFOs in the sand, and he's going, yeah, up there. And they're all like, sure, dude. Right. They won't believe him. But that gives it a more human theme, because we go, yeah, we can identify with that. They don't believe him. Visualize the actions. This is a rainmaker. Without characters start loading in, singing and dancing, causing lightning to rise. That's what causes it to rain, to bring the water levels back so that you have a balance between the factories that are taking from the landscape and the native forces that are trying to replenish it. Learning from visualizing. How many polygons in animation cycles? What's the lighting qualities? Are the actions funny to watch? When you want to create really different stuff that people haven't seen before, 90% of the people that you're going to try and communicate that to, even on your team, are not going to get it. They're just not. It doesn't mean they're stupid. Sometimes they're Mensa. I mean, they're brilliant. But that doesn't mean they're going to get what you're trying to communicate. So the more that you can do, the more that you can visualize, the more that you stand a chance of actually manifesting what it is that you're dreaming of. Are the actions funny to watch? Visualize, visualize, visualize. You can't say it enough, and that basically means art direction, direction. These are characters that are coming, big bro armor states. You can tell in doing paintings. Can I read them? You know, I think some of the best games, one of my favorite genres is RTS. And some of the best games that do this well are Age of Empires, Warcraft. Blizzard, I think, is an amazing company, possibly one of the best in the world. And they do this really well. When I look at the landscape, I can tell who's more powerful. I can tell which side's mine. I can tell which guys do what, just by their art direction, by their themes. You know, Miyamoto's really good at that too. But, you know, it's just not my cup of tea. But this stuff, the more that you can do this, you solve all your problems before you get it into CPU cycles. And once you start dealing with people on computers, you start ringing up the tab, which brings us back to the golden rules. You know, you want to try and beat the money outflow with the visualizing and the art direction of what it is that you're creating, so that people know what the hell you're talking about. And by the time they're actually building it in 3D and using expensive computers and spending that time, you know that it works. Gluckins. This guy's just a pud. He's a wannabe. But you can grow him all the way up into a Glock star. You got to chop up a lot of bunnies, though, to get there. Health states, you know, we don't like menus. So game designers want to kill me sometimes. I go, no menus, no. They go, dude, man, you got to communicate some shit to the user. I go, we'll figure it out. No menus. I want to kill, you know. And I understand. It's not an easy problem, but that's it. Coming back to creating really hard problems is what gets oftentimes brilliant solutions. With Dawkins, this is how they're growing. This is how their health states are. A guy gets beat up, he should get up with a cast on. You know, it should be funny too. Twistedly funny, but funny nonetheless. Jobs that they have. Are their color schemes working? Are they falling into play? Can you tell who's what? Bikers. What do they do? How do their things work? This is just examples of things that we do internally. We try and find formats to art direct, formats to visualize, so that you go, oh, okay, 3 stages of growth, 3 stages of this. Once you get in the game, you can always find something different. You can't lose by over art directing. You can't lose by over having too much creative. There's no such thing. You can always cut back. And the thing that's really hard is you want to pull from the whole crowd. You want to get everyone to give ideas. This is the visualizations you're seeing. This is the real-time art and art direction team. These guys have done an awesome job. Of course, they drink a lot of coffee. Feed enough caffeine, you know, get good results. No presentation, no production without this crew. This is our hardware crew. As I say, you know, people usually don't get up and talk about the crews, but you need to. The unsung heroes, administration. The artists think that, you know, I mean, you tend to think that, like, who cares? You know, they do accounting, they do legal, they do trademarks. Yeah, well, when you hit big time and you find out you're screwed because your trademark wasn't filed properly, you wish you had the right people. You know, you can't have enough appreciation for your team. Validate your vision along the way. Demographics. This was Sony's demographics when we first started, and GT's also. They figured, yeah, 21-year-olds, that's pretty much what we're going to hit. We found out we hit below, we hit above, and we did okay in the middle range. But look at the females was surprising. You know, we had right in here, you know, 28-year-old women getting into it. This was the initial demographic. This is what we found, 13.8% female. By the time Exodus, we got some marketing data back, 18% female in Europe. That's the only place where we got data back. We go, that's almost 1 in 4 people buying the game is a woman. Why is that? Understand your game technology growth. The more that you can communicate your story of how it is that why you're doing what you're doing smart to the people that are paying for it, the more that you can secure their belief that they're actually not going to lose their money. Our amortization, you see some things, these are different categories. I don't really have the time to explain them, but it shows that all of what we're doing is aiming towards amortizing our databases towards one sort of more constant future. Quality goals. This is Abe's Odyssey. We felt as though our majority of quality, at tops, we were hitting 80%. For even game technology and stuff, we were hitting at like 50%. I mean, this is how we felt about it. A lot of people are going home after selling 1 million units, and like they think they're God. Well, wake up, man. You're not shit. This is just one good day you had. This is one good game you had. Just because you sold a couple million units doesn't mean dick. Excuse my French. But it's like our industry, we live in a great place, San Luis Obispo, California. One of the things I love about it is it keeps our egos down. It's real just living there. It's not like we're doing lunch in Hollywood, which I can't stand. Munch's Odyssey. You see that over time, all these quality goals, we keep on going up. Even after we release Munch, I mean, half of our numbers where we think we are is still only at 90%. Put your goals high. Our digital databases, everything we built, we're building towards the future. This is our new Maya RenderMan configuration using old databases and new technology. Pre-rendered. That was just testing the new software configuration that we did months ago. We started setting up. But computationally, that's a mother. That's just huge. It's the computer graphics team. These are the people who make that happen. Another source of great inspiration. I think you'll all appreciate this. These are some of the things Senator Lieberman had to say about our industry. Let there be no doubt, these games are not harmless fun, but digital poison. This is in his video game report card, 1998. Love this guy. They are helping to create a culture of violence that is increasingly enveloping our children. Maybe there's truth in that. Desensitizing them and ultimately cheapening the value of human life. How many more brutal killings must be committed by kids before we make the connection? Senator Joseph Lieberman. What's really interesting about this is like, gee, we don't know, Joe. I don't know, when do we make the connection? But we've made some connections of our own, Joe. Like your quote to Meet the Press regarding your support of the NATO bombings killing civilians in Kosovo. I hope the air campaign, the bombings, will so devastate his economy, so ruin the lives of his people, that they will rise up and throw him out. And this is our moral representative to the United States people. Interesting studies that we just found out at the Game Executive Conference. People who think video games and violence really affect kids are mostly people who don't play video games. Interesting. Personally, we think there is an effect, but we're still in an evolutionary stage. We should start to figure these things out. Anyway, for Joe, this is what I feel is a more accurate portrait of Joseph Lieberman. Really, he cares about your children. Yeah, right. This is the only game we thought Joe would approve of. Haven't we heard this before? This kind of doublespeak. It's like he blows up children, but he's supporting blowing up people with cluster bombs in Kosovo that don't have anything to do with any political agendas, and then he talks about us about we have no morals and we should be shut down. Come on, please. If you had any integrity, if you had any morals, maybe we'd listen to you and have credibility. But you don't have it, Joe. Embrace the power of an artist's medium. This is, George Orwell, a children's book, Animal Farm. What did that influence about the way we thought about the future? I know it had severe effects on the way I perceived politics as a kid. We're being challenged. This is a Newsweek article last week. First, PlayStation comes to America. If you read that article, it said the emotion engine. I don't think so. They fall short of engaging the heart. What they're saying is we're all sort of wannabe artists. Are they right? And this is where we're being challenged. And this is where I think it's important that maybe we put it in a different perspective that we don't hear often. I don't have time for this one. I'm going to move past it. How many eyeballs are we getting? Avis sold nearly 4 million units. Average player spends 5 hours. That's 20 million hours of eyeballs. 20 million hours of people's attention span. We live in a nation where 1 in 5 children are being prescribed Ritalin or Prozac because they've been diagnosed with ADD. But many of them will spend dozens of hours in front of your video games with absolute concentration. Why is this? Are they speaking a new language? How many hours of eyeballs are we all getting with all of our games? Average child spends 49 minutes a day playing a video game. With just 10 million children playing, of which we know there's a lot more, that's 2.9 billion hours of gameplay next year. Average teen plays a game more than he watches TV. Next year, the actual number of adolescent gameplay is most likely well over 100 billion hours. 100 billion hours of attention span, of consciousness that we're sort of creating a black hole and people's minds are going into. Several hundred billion hours of human consciousness will be dedicated to our virtual experiences next year. When I say our, I mean the industry. Think we can make a difference? Thank you very much.